Every life has a story, and every story is worth sharing. Your story, my story, and our story speak of victory and defeat, joy and sorrow, resilience and vulnerability. They are not just our story, they are Christ's story in us. They are Kingdom Stories from Down Under.
She was born in Melbourne and moved to Perth when she was 6. Grew up in Perth, got to know the Lord Jesus, got married, worked in various interesting jobs as a dental nurse, as a nail technician, mostly as a teacher, as a pastor. Important roles as a mum, as a wife, and most recently as a grandma. I had the privilege to work alongside with her and her husband in various ministries, initiatives, and just to share so many wonderful moments together. It is my privilege to bring you to Kingdom Stories from Down Under, Jan East. Janice East, we call her Jan East. She is Phil East's wife, and you've probably seen Phil East on a previous episode here at Kingdom Stories. Welcome, Jan.
Thank you, Natanael.
You don't mind me introducing you as Phil's wife, do you?
Not at all, because that's who I am.
You gave yourself to him.
Well, yes, I guess so.
How many years ago?
35 years in next week.
Next week, 35 years.
Next week.
He just celebrated his birthday as well.
Yes.
And
I'm much older than him.
You are much older.
Yeah. 3 years.
We can't tell it. You know, my dad was almost 4 years younger
right?
than my mum, and he passed away first.
All right.
So.
Well, whatever happens, Natanael.
Yeah. 35 years of marriage.
35 years.
Good on you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. So
Thank
if
you
I
very
don't
much.
get to say it next week, receive it now, please.
Thank you, I will.
That's a beautiful legacy for your children, isn't it?
It is, actually. I think it's important for the kids to see their parents persevering through difficult times, and that gives them a reference point, and it also I think it keeps a safety net within the family.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
When there's a legacy of a marriage and staying together, I think it provides a legacy that your kids don't have to fight against in their
well,
own
I think,
marriages.
you're probably like us. We never negotiate that. It's not you don't even entertain that thought ever.
Somebody once said to me that marriage is like a room with no doors.
Yeah.
You just work it out.
Yeah, you have to.
Yes, and you do.
And I think, if we have the right attitude, we will work out anything that comes our way.
Absolutely.
Were your parents also very committed to one another?
Yes, they were. They were married for maybe 57, 58 years. And my father died 9 years ago, and Mum died 2 weeks later.
Oh, she just couldn't.
Yeah.
The pain was too much. Was she sick, or she just...
When my dad became sick, it became obvious that Mum had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a rapid descent from there, I think.
And she probably just gave up. There was nothing to fight for.
Well, when he died, it was I think every time she wondered where he was, and somebody had to tell her that he had died.
It hurt every time.
I think every time was just fresh grief every time.
It just pierced her every time.
Yeah.
That's sad.
I was very sad.
Yeah.
But when they both died, there was a rejoicing because they both knew the Lord.
Yeah.
And I knew where they were.
Yeah.
I knew exactly.
So they were people of faith all their life.
Yep. Oh, not all their life, no. Mum was born again when she was in her 40s, I think. Mm-hmm. My dad was a very proud professional man and was horrified when at a church service one night. Yeah. My mum stood up to go forward to be baptised, and my dad tried to hold her back, and she wriggled free, and she went down and was baptised.
So this was back in the times when they would baptise you on the spot. They had a baptiser in.
No, they had a baptism service at the church that night. So my dad was a churchgoer.
Okay.
But back in those days, everybody went to church, but he was not born again.
Never
he was
committed.
not born again. No.
Mm. Yeah. And he almost held her back, but she carried on.
She wriggled free, which was, in retrospect, a very brave move for my mother, because she was...
Did you inherit some of those attributes? How do you wiggle?
It was a bit dormant in Mum. But that night, my dad was very angry with my mother.
Yes.
He was very angry, and they both told me this story. And that night, they went home and he refused to talk to her. And they lay in bed, and she said to him, "Aren't you going to give me a kiss goodnight?" And my dad says that at that minute, he was lifted out of his bed, thrown to the floor, and the voice of Jesus said to him, "What do you think you're doing to me?"
Oh.
And he was converted on the spot and was never
In that
the same
moment.
again. In that moment, yeah.
She did get her kiss.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so it was a very powerful conversion.
How old were you when that happened?
I would have been 3 or 4, I think.
Okay, so your mum had you a bit later on in life.
Well,
late 30s, early 40s?
probably 30-ish, 30, because I'm the youngest of 4.
Okay, so you have 3 older brothers?
I have 3 older brothers. I'm the youngest of 4, and then they married, maybe late 20s they got married.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So not really walking with the Lord at the time, none of them, or just occasionally going to church?
We always went to church.
Okay.
That's,
Is it more a traditional church, like an Anglican or Catholic?
No, Mum and Dad both were part of the Methodist Church as kids.
Yep.
Because that was the youth group.
Yeah.
That was their community.
What suburb in Melbourne? I've lived in Melbourne if you...
Oh, okay.
No,
I grew up in Doncaster.
Doncaster, okay. I went to Camberwell High, which is just south of Doncaster. Okay. About 10 k's probably.
Yeah.
So I was on that line. I lived in Richmond.
Okay.
And went to Camberwell High.
I don't really know the geography of Melbourne particularly well, but...
Do you remember anything from Melbourne?
Yes, I do. I remember going to school there.
Yeah?
I remember the apple orchards. Melbourne, Doncaster was still quite rural when we lived there.
A lot of Greeks.
Yeah, there were a lot of apple
Italians.
orchards there.
Yeah.
And there was an oval called Shram's Oval just near our house. And on Sunday afternoons, a Scottish pipe band would march down to the oval, down to Shram's Oval, and we would race out and listen to the Scottish pipe band. Remember going to school.
Drums.
Remember my dad's dental practice in Brunswick.
He was a dentist?
He was a dentist.
Okay, so that's why you eventually became a dental nurse.
2 of my brothers are dentists. I was a dental nurse, and the other brother got away. He's an architect.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what was your mum doing?
Mum was a housewife.
Well, she had to be with the doctor, who was probably very committed to his profession.
Very committed.
Long hours.
Very, very.
And with 4 children, what else could you do?
And also, it was the era where I think as soon as
it was the best era.
Yeah, and when Mum got married, when the women got married, they left their jobs.
Yeah. And it wasn't that bad.
Well, I don't think so. I think the family benefited from that.
Sure.
But I think women as individuals have certainly benefited by developing their lives, but I don't know that it's the best for the family. In fact,
I think there's many areas where you can develop, not necessarily in a professional career, but there's so many things that you can do around, family, community.
Well, I didn't start working until my youngest son was 8.
Yeah, but you were always involved in something.
And I made a vow.
Yeah.
That I was not going to get a permanent job until he had finished high school.
Oh, yeah.
I would work.
Yeah.
But as a relief teacher.
Yes.
But I made a commitment to myself and to God that I was not going to work until he finished high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then in his last term at high school, the principal that I was working for offered me a contract.
Full-time job.
Yeah.
Which was perfect.
Yeah.
So you honoured that.
I did, yeah. And God honoured it as well.
Well, you see, you've done what my wife is doing as well. She's pregnant, obviously, now with the 4th baby. And she does 2 mornings a week. And she's done that over the last 7-8 years while we had the children. So she kept her professional career going. It got her out of the house, back into, a career sort of environment with professional people. So, because sometimes, you get too sucked into the house chores. But she kept that professional development, and she also kept in touch with most of her colleagues from the hospital days. So every couple of months they go for high tea and they meet for coffee, and it's just wonderful. She managed to balance everything pretty well. And I think that's what you've done as well.
I've tried to.
Yeah.
And with the kind of work I do when I'm working with children, I did not want to come home after looking after everybody else's children and not having enough time and emotional energy for my own.
Yeah.
And I also realised that as they got older, they didn't need me to do things for them necessarily, but I needed to be emotionally available, because boys are not going to come home from school and tell you that something terrible happened. You've got to be discerning enough and emotional. You've got to mine it, dig it out of them. And you've got to, something's not right, something's wrong, what's going on?
Yeah.
And but if you're exhausted yourself.
In fact, it's the last thing you want to hear.
Absolutely.
Because you don't want to deal with it.
Yep.
Be brave, suck it up and carry on. Tomorrow's a new day.
I agree, yep. So that's why I did what I did.
You moved to Perth as a 6-year-old because your family, your dad changed his practice? Or?
My mother's sister was a devout, had a radical conversion as well.
Sure.
And my dad did not like the influence that her sister was having on his wife.
Okay.
And I think that my dad he came to Perth for a dental conference.
Yes.
Fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Phoned my mum while he was here and said, get on a plane now and come and see this place. They both fell in love with Perth.
Yes.
And we followed
suit.
We followed soon after, yeah. But I think there was an element of, I need to get my wife away from that sister.
Did she ever become a radical Christian, your
mum? No. She was very devout.
Okay.
My mum wouldn't do anything on a Sunday.
Yeah.
She would always go to church. We always thought she was a bit weird. But now, in the light of my own salvation, I recognise that my mother was just very devout and put certain things as priorities, regardless of what the rest of family were doing.
Yeah. And he opened his own practice, your dad, here?
Yes. Dad had a dental practice for many years on Stirling Highway in Nedlands.
Okay.
And then we had this enormous house on Waratah Avenue in Dalkeith.
Oh.
And he moved his practice down to as part of the house. And then when my brothers graduated, they moved into practice with him.
Yes.
And then several years later, a big shopping complex was built just down the road with a dental practice included, and they offered it to him. So he thought, well, if I don't move down there, somebody else will. Yeah. So he moved his practice down to the Dalkeith village on Waratah Avenue.
Wonderful.
Stayed there until he retired.
So you grew up in Dalkeith,
Dalkeith,
one of the posher suburbs in Perth?
Well, yeah, I don't think we were very posh, but
And what school did you go to?
I went to MLC.
Okay. Ladies' College,
Methodist Ladies' College.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was life there at school?
To be honest, Natanael, I didn't particularly like it there.
Because there were no boys?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was a very good girl.
Yes.
And wasn't very worldly at all. Mm-hmm. And my take on it is that a lot of the girls that were at MLC were there for rehabilitation almost.
Oh,
or the girls that I seemed to connect with were all pretty
punished to be there.
No, they were all a bit naughty.
Okay.
They were all they were just not like me.
Duplicate lives.
Well, just right. Like I said, I was pretty naive, and at a very young age, these girls were all into boys, and it just was not me at all.
Yeah.
And I begged with my dad, could I please leave? So I left MLC and went to Hollywood High School.
Okay.
And then stayed there for a little while, and then I left school at 15.
Oh, and your dad allowed you to do that?
Amazingly, my dad allowed me to, and then because back then, his philosophy was, whenever I would say to my dad, I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, he would say, oh, you're a girl, you'll get married and have a family. And I thought, oh, well, okay.
Oh, so the stress was on the boys, the pressure.
Yeah, Dad organised careers counselling for them, and everything. And me, it was just, you don't need to worry because you'll get married and have a family.
Wow.
And then fast forward, by the time I was 21, he said to me, when are you going to get out of the idiot stage? He said that to
So
me.
what did you do between 15 and 21?
I was a dental nurse.
Okay, with him.
I was my dad's dental nurse. And then when my brothers graduated, I set up their practice.
Yes.
And I was pretty good at what I did. But when I had quite a powerful conversion experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, no, what happened was I had decided that I did want to do some further study.
Yes.
And dental therapy seemed to be the natural progression from being a dental assistant.
Nurse. Yeah.
And I didn't have my year 12 qualification, so I was doing human biology and English at night school.
Yes.
To get the qualification I needed.
Like a bridging course.
Yeah, to get into, I think it was
dental therapist.
Yeah, to become a dental therapist.
Yeah.
Halfway through that year at night school, I was doing it at night school, I picked up a book of my mother's that was called Under Sealed Orders, and it was a book of sermons by Peter Marshall.
Okay.
And he had been the chaplain to the presidents in the White House back in the 50s.
Yes.
And this was a book of sermons that his wife Catherine Marshall compiled, and they were his sermons.
Yes.
So I picked up this book. It looked like an interesting spy book, Under Sealed Orders, right up. I thought it was great. Anyway, I read it.
Yes.
And I read it 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I could feel this book coming into my spirit.
Yes.
I didn't know it was my spirit at the time.
Sure.
But I could feel this book coming in here, not into my head.
Uh-huh.
And I read it 3 times. I just couldn't get enough. I read it 3 times. And on the 3rd time through, bam. Wow. I get it.
How old were you?
Nearly 21. I was 20.
And was this in your room?
No, this was in the lunchroom at work.
Okay.
It was on my lunch break.
Yeah.
And I remember getting up thinking, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
And instantly I knew who God was.
Okay.
And at that point, I also felt God said, here's my life, God, what do you want me to do with it?
Yeah.
And that was on March the 11th, March the 20th, 1981.
Yep.
March the 20th, 1981. And then in June of that year, I started at Teachers College.
Okay.
The doors into Teachers
So
College
you
just
shifted,
opened.
you never finished, you never went into dental therapy?
No. I heard about a mature age entrance exam at Claremont Teachers College.
Yeah.
And when I went through school, they didn't do any exams. I thought, right, if I'm going to be going to uni to do dental therapy, I better go and sit an exam.
Yeah.
So I went and sat this mature age entrance exam at Claremont Teachers College, which was just around the corner from where I live.
Yes.
There were 200 people sitting this mature age entrance. They said, we will phone 50 of you for an interview, and we've got places for 25. Well, they rang me for an interview, and I said, look, I'm not interested. I want to do dental therapy. And they pleaded with me, would you please come in? So I thought, oh, all right. So I went in and did the interview, and then a couple of weeks later, they offered me a position on the course.
Perfect.
And I thought, oh, you know what?
Might as well.
That'll do. Then it can start now.
And that was a 3-year course or a 2-year course?
A 3-year diploma.
3-year diploma.
Yeah. And then I did the upgrade to a bachelor degree just a few years ago.
When did you meet Phil? While you were doing that school?
No, I met Phil at the Potter's House.
Oh.
So that was a very profound, powerful conversion experience.
Yes.
And I was going to Perth Central Baptist, and a man by the name of Neil, I can't remember his name, but he had a radio ministry.
Yes.
And my parents loved him, so they went to his service. So I just used to go to church with Mum and Dad. But once I was converted, it wasn't
You were
enough
looking,
for me.
started looking for places.
I went to Teachers College.
Yeah.
Met some Christians. I had no idea, even though I'd gone to church all my life, I had no idea how God and Jesus and heaven, and I had no idea how it all fitted together.
Yes.
And I met a young guy at Teachers College who ran the ISCF. He took me under his wing. He followed me up, took me to his church.
Yeah.
But then I met a couple of other Christians at Teachers College, And one of them was best friends with Ned Davies, who I believe you've all also had on.
Yes, we had him on Kingdom Stories, yes.
Well, Ian was at Teachers College,
yes.
and he and his friend Ned came to my house one night for an ISCF barbecue.
Yeah.
And there was just something about their lives.
Wow.
They were just so full of God.
Yeah.
And I visited their church, which was the Potter's House, and the preaching at that church was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Absolutely phenomenal. And so we were there. I met Phil there, and we were in that organisation for about 20 years.
And you got baptised?
I got water baptised.
Yeah.
Yep.
Did you have the Renewal of the Spirit as well?
I did.
There with them or later on?
No, that was actually before, because this fellow that I first met took me to another church called New Day Ministries.
Okay.
And I was baptised in the Holy Spirit there.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you met Phil.
I met Phil.
And how did it happen?
Well, I'd known who Phil was. And then at the Potter's House, we went on impact teams. They'd say, because they were right into church planting.
Yeah.
And so on weekends, you could sign up to go to one of the church plants just to help them on the streets and be there for the outreach that night. And I had decided that I would go to the one to Kalgoorlie. I was working on a Saturday, but I had a Saturday off, and I signed up for the Kalgoorlie outreach, thought that would be fun. And apparently Phil saw that I'd signed up for the Kalgoorlie outreach, so he signed up as well. And we sat next to each other on the 8-hour trip there, and just...
On the bus, on a minibus?
It was about a 9-seater or something like that. Yeah, we just clicked, and I thought to myself, oh, you're all right.
Yeah.
And what I loved about Phil, he was... I knew that I could trust him with my life. Yeah. I knew that he was trustworthy. Mm-hmm. And I loved the way that he was... I loved his leadership on this team. Yeah. It turns out that he wasn't actually the leader of the team. He was just being bossy. But I admired his enthusiasm, his love for God. He just seemed like a stable, solid, trustworthy guy. So I thought, I'll allow him to take me out, Okay. And we did. And so we dated for 6 months, engaged for 3, married for 35. Did he ask you to marry him, or you asked him to marry him? No, he definitely proposed to me.
And did he get you a ring? Was it still rings?
Yeah. No, we went, we got engaged he proposed on New Year's Eve. Mm-hmm. And on New Year's morning, he picked me up, took me out for breakfast, and we went window shopping for rings.
Oh, wonderful.
Then, so, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then you had children here, or you moved to Canberra?
No. Well, we got married in 1986. In 1987, we were planted from the Potter's House to start a church in Canberra.
Yes.
And we were there for 20 years.
And
loved it.
Pastors
we pastored the church there for 12 years, and then after 12 years we realised that the organisation was heading in a different direction to where we wanted to go. So we resigned from there, but we felt that God had called us to Canberra.
Sure.
And so we stayed in Canberra until we felt God called us back.
And all your kids were born in Canberra?
Yeah, the 3 kids were all born in Canberra. Amanda went all through school in Canberra.
And did you work in the public sector on and off?
Well, that's where I worked for... Well, I didn't... I had kind of forgotten that I had a teaching qualification. Because I'd never used it.
Wrapped up in pastoral work and family life.
Well, once I graduated, I kind of thought, they've not taught me what to do. I just went back to dental nursing. Yeah. And then when we resigned from the church, I needed to get a job.
Yes.
And I was going to go back to dental nursing because that's what I did. And I had a job secured. Yes. And then I thought to myself, what am I going to do about the school holidays? I'm not putting my kids in holiday programs. Yeah. The holidays were crucial for them to spend time together.
Yeah, and go somewhere and camp and ski.
So I thought, no, I'm not going to do it. And then one of my son's teachers said to me, don't you have a teaching qualification? And I said, yes. And she said, do relief teaching. And I said, no, I can't do that, couldn't do that. She goes, yes, you could. No, I couldn't. Yes, you could. No, I couldn't. Anyway, I filled out the application form.
Yeah.
This is now 16 years after I graduated, and I have no experience.
And they call you in.
So I filled out the application form, and I got a phone call, and they said, come on down for an interview. And the guy looked at my application, and he was like, yeah.
There's something missing
here.
here.
And I said, listen, you know, if you don't... I said, this is just a real long shot, and if you think I'm being ridiculous, then you just tell me. He goes, well, look, you've got the qualification.
Yeah.
Let's have a chat and
See.
see where it goes. So we chatted for a while. And then he said to me, so do you have any questions? And I said, well, if I was successful, and he said, which you are, and put a big tick.
Oh.
I mean, that's
And what
it.
was the question?
Oh, I can't remember now.
It doesn't matter.
I can't remember. So
You did relief work.
So I did relief, but it was like I said, it was nearly 17 years by that stage since I had graduated. So I really had no idea.
So what brought you back to Perth?
Okay. What brought us back to Perth was once we left the Potter's House,
Yeah.
Phil got a full-time job in the public service.
Yes.
And for 7 years, he did no ministry at all. And then...
Detox.
And just focusing on getting to know God again, you know?
Yeah.
And not doing things for God,
Sure.
but just...
Absorbing,
yes,
being.
just being...
Yeah.
Just being sons and daughters and not
Yeah.
servants all the time.
Yeah.
Just being... And after 7 years, he thought, right, the next outreach that this church that we were going to is going on, I'm going.
Mm.
And they were actually heading off to Russia.
Yes.
So I thought, right, I'm going to Russia. Then a couple of weeks later, the pastor said to Phil, you know what, Phil, you're welcome to come to Russia with me, but there are some other guys going to Indonesia
Yes.
that, you know, there might be more opportunity for ongoing ministry. So Phil thought, all right, then I'll go to Indonesia. So he went with this team to Indonesia just as a third wheel, really,
Yeah.
but had some opportunities to minister there, and they loved what he had to say. So they said, will you come back?
Yes.
And so the door for his ministry into Indonesia opened, and he kept doing that, I suppose, from Canberra
Yes.
for 2 or 3 years. But then after a while realised that this is the future direction that God was pointing him in.
Yes.
It was a whole lot easier to get to Indonesia from Perth than it was from
Bali,
Canberra.
3.5 hours.
So
8
we
hours
left-
from...
well, you had to fly to Sydney,
Yeah.
wait for a transfer, and then an 8-hour flight from Sydney,
to
whereas
Jakarta. Yeah.
2 hours, 3
Yeah.
hours from here.
Fantastic.
So I had to bid my beautiful Canberra and my beautiful friends farewell, which was agonising,
Mm.
but I just did.
You also
I
had
just did it.
family here.
Yeah, my mum and my dad and my
Your
brothers were here.
Yeah, so it wasn't like you were coming...
We were coming home.
Yeah, you were coming home in a way.
Mhm.
And just fast forward a little bit to... You did go to Indonesia yourself and spend a few
Yes.
months up at Kapet Kanaan. I have been there, you probably
I
know.
You have. Yes,
And
I
I've
know.
seen, you know, there's a street after your
do know that
name,
there's-
Jan Street.
It's Lorong Mrs. Jan East. Which
Mrs.
is,
Jan East.
Yeah. and
Jalan Mrs. Jan East.
Yeah, that's it. And we were crowned the king and queen of the community there.
Of the
Did
Kapet,
you
of
know
Kapet
that?
Kanaan. No, I didn't know.
Yeah, no, they crowned us king and queen of their community.
Wow, that's a very powerful honor. Great
It
honor.
was, yeah.
And you spent quite a few weeks there,
Oh,
on and off.
More than, no, we were there, we lived in Indonesia for 2 years,
Okay.
frequent trips home.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I said to Phil, I did not want to go. I really did not want to go at all. I was dragged, kicking and screaming, to be quite frank. And I said, well, I'm not going straight to some outpost somewhere. If you want to live in Indonesia, I want to spend 6 months in Bali,
Yeah.
because I was used to going to Bali for a holiday.
Sure.
And I thought if the heat gets too much, I can just be on a
Jump on
phone.
a plane.
I can be on a plane and be home that night if worse comes to
You
worse.
don't like the heat.
Oh, I just
It's
love
the
my family.
humidity
No,
and-
I like Bali, but I loved my life here, and I knew that Phil gave up his job, and I knew that it was a massive change in our life,
Of course.
and I wasn't really ready for it.
Mm.
But I was the good wife, and I did the wife thing.
And you spent...
We spent 6 months in Bali. And then Jeff Hammond, who you know.
Yes.
And is also a friend of Phil's.
Yes, of course.
Said there was an opportunity up in Northern Sulawesi at this little refugee village, basically. And I could teach English and Phil could just minister to the people. And I looked on the map to see where it was and I thought, oh my goodness, it really is the ends of the earth.
South Philippines.
It is the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
But we went there. We went there just to sort of feel the water.
Yeah. Literally feel the water every morning.
But when we went there for 2 weeks, it was when Jeff Hammond was running one of his mission schools.
So it was fun. A lot of activity.
It was fun. There was a generator and there was somebody to cook the food and, you know, there was an air conditioning every night and there was power and...
The toilets were working.
This is great. I'll come back here. Let's come back for a year.
Yeah.
But then when we got back, there was no big generator running. There was no power at all. And no
staff to cook.
No one to cook anything. We were just on our own in this dark, nothing.
In the jungle.
In the middle of the jungle. With nothing, no electricity, no fans, no aircon, no lights.
Even though it was paradise, per se.
Oh, beautiful location.
But conditions,
so we did it really, and I'm one of these people that mosquitoes just love me, and I was covered in rats all the time, and rats in the roof. You've heard the rats at night.
Oh yes, of course.
Rats. You know, I'd go and hit the rats over the head every morning. They'd get stuck in the glue traps.
Yeah.
I'd go and hit them over the head every morning so I could
get
to my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Oh, it was very tough.
Yeah.
But it was what I would refer to as the best of times and the worst of times. It was an honour to be there.
And you obviously you were together, and you must have gelled a lot, you know, through all, you know, with Phil. There was a lot of lag time, a lot of idle time where you could just chat and do stuff.
It actually, Natanael, put a lot of pressure on our marriage.
It did.
It put a lot of pressure on.
Everything came out.
Well, it was difficult for him and it was difficult for me.
It was difficult physically, obviously, the environment.
Mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
And Phil's...
There was no reprieve.
Phil's coping mechanism is to just hunker down and get the job done.
Okay.
My coping mechanism is help, and there was no one there to help me because he was in his survival mode, and it put an awful lot of pressure on us. And but again, there's nowhere. I'm not going anywhere, so we just had to see it out, and that's why I did make frequent trips home.
It's quite a hike from Manado back.
Oh, a long time. 2 hours. A 2 hour drive through a very
windy road. And then you've got the flights. The flights were not direct. You couldn't get direct flights. You had to go
via Bali. We would go via Bali.
Yeah. Was there a direct flight from Bali to Manado?
Yes, there was for a while.
When we went there.
No,
it's
intermittent. If they, I don't know what determines their
holidays, maybe. Or
I don't know, but
seasons.
Most of the time we were there.
So you would only come to Bali, or you would come all the way to Perth?
I would come home.
You would come home. Yeah. Now, another massive commitment was to a trek in Nepal.
One trek in Nepal.
How many times?
5 treks to Nepal.
5 treks to Nepal.
Yeah.
And you did the Annapurna, which was the most challenging of them all.
I've done the Annapurna circuit, and I've done the Annapurna base camp.
Okay.
I've done Gosan Kunda.
Yes.
I've done, I can't remember the names of all the others, but
wow.
I've done a lot of trekking in Nepal.
5 treks. Oh, that's
really
phenomenal.
good to get the weight down.
Yeah.
Never look better than after I've been to Nepal.
I dropped about 7 kilos in 12 days, I think.
And, I did not want to do that. But
you didn't? None of them?
No. Well, the first one, our son went to Nepal.
Yes.
He came back and said, Mum and Dad, you would love it.
He did the Everest base camp?
No, he just did...
Amanda did Everest base.
Amanda did Everest base camp. Terry just did a very small day trip because just with his time. But he said, Mum and Dad, you would love it. You've got to go.
So Phil hadn't done it either?
No.
Okay, so you went together for the first time?
Yeah. Well, he was turning 50.
Yep.
He said, right, I'm going to go for my 50th. And he said, we're going. And I said, I'm not going. He goes, yeah, we'll go together. I said, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm not much of an exerciser. And he goes, no, we'll go. And I said, I don't want to go. No, we'll go. And then he went and bought the tickets. And I thought, well, this isn't going to go away. This is not going to go away. So I just...
Being a good wife again.
Yeah, again. Well, I thought he'd bought the ticket. So I just went to the beach and I started off walking in the soft sand 5 minutes that way, 5 minutes one way and 5 minutes back. And then the next week, 10 minutes that way, 10 minutes back. And here in Perth, the only way to really strengthen yourself is going in the soft sand.
Sand or rocks or steps.
Well, for convenience sake, I just made it. I went to Mullaloo Beach.
Yeah.
Until I was walking an hour this way and then an hour that way, and
in the sand, in the soft
sand.
That's a good work, yeah.
And then we had our first day and we climbed about 1,000 meters. Well, gained 1,000 meters, and at the end of the day, nobody was more surprised than I was I did.
That you managed.
Yeah, and it's a bit like having a baby, you know.
No.
You do. I'll tell you. You vow in the midst of it that you will never, ever, ever do this again.
Yeah.
I will never do this again.
Yeah.
And then when it's all over, you think, oh, what a sense of achievement that was. Yeah, let's go and do it again.
Yeah.
And then you do it again and you think, I will never do this again. And then 5 times later.
What I found the most difficult out there was sleeping at over 4,000. You know, you just... I mean, the conditions were so awful. It's not just the fact that you couldn't rest and couldn't breathe. And, you know, I feel with the people with COVID-19 because I know what it means to lie down and not be able to take in oxygen. But just the conditions were so awful where we stayed. I mean, we were sleeping in these cabins, like one next to each other, like 10, 15 people, basically, no private space whatsoever. Everybody's sick, you know, they're running outside, vomiting, you know, spewing, having number 1s, number 2s, number 3s, whatever it was, coughing. Nobody's asleep, everybody's waiting for the morning. And you are on your 11th or 12th day by now, so you're tired as... In some sense, you just want to get your backpack and run, start walking. But you know there's a 12-hour day waiting for you, which is the pass.
Well, the most challenging trek we did was the Annapurna Circuit.
Yeah, because so many steps.
Well, that was I think we did about 17 days. That was 17 days.
Yeah.
And on about day 9, day 10, you ascend up to 5,500 metres.
Yeah.
And there's 50% less oxygen at 5,500 metres.
You just drag your feet, basically.
And people on that day, that ascent day, people that while I was walking past would take a step and then have to sit down.
Yeah.
Then stand up and take another step. Or go over on a yak.
Yeah.
Or
there were yaks there?
Yeah, there were yaks.
We had nothing in Manaslu.
Yeah.
You know, it was quite wild.
And, you know, again, because I'm slow, I had taken it so slowly to get there, I had actually conditioned.
Yeah, you toughened yourself.
I was acclimatised.
Yeah.
And I went over the pass carrying my own pack.
Yeah.
It was hard work. It was freezing cold.
Yeah. You just pace it. What I've done is the boys pushed in the morning and I felt that I shouldn't. So I was maybe about 800 meters behind them. But I paced it, just gently paced it all the way.
Absolutely.
But it plays on your mind, it plays with your head. You're not yourself up there, you know.
Well, the last trek that we did was to Gosankunda. And I probably wasn't as fit for that last trip as I had been previously.
Yes.
And
was that the last trip?
Yeah,
and we also realize
maybe 3 years ago.
We don't realize that as we age, it takes us longer to recover. We don't give ourselves breaks.
No.
Maybe we should have a day.
Well, we did do that, but I just knew that I wasn't. I hadn't spent as much time
preparing
in fitness, and I was paying the price for it. And I was just constantly crying out to God, "You've got to help me. You have got to help me." And then
no point trying to feel. He just was.
On the first, the taxi dropped us off, and then it was an instant, really steep climb, and we walked for a couple of kilometres, and we stopped for our first break, and I said to Phil, "I am finding this really hard," and he said, "What exactly is it? What part of it is it actually that you're finding difficult?"
Steps.
Putting one foot in front of the other, but anyway, it was about the 5th or 6th day, and we were getting to the pass.
Yes.
And I said, "God, I've been asking you to help me, and I feel like you're not. I'm doing this all on my own. I need you to help me.
Yeah.
What's the story? And I did not know. We had 1,000 meters to go up
That day.
Ooh. And I did not know how I was going to do it. Because I put my pack on, and the guide was worried about me, so he was just behind me. And I was struggling to just put one foot in front of the other, and I started to sing "They That Wait Upon the Lord" out loud. I started speaking it out loud, and it was amazing. As I began to declare that they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Yeah. I was carried, and I was too afraid to stop singing. I must have sung that song for about 2 hours. And it was amazing. It was remarkable because I was carried up.
What a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it was a powerful, and when we got there, it was one of the most magnificent views I've ever seen. And I sat on a rock and I just lifted my hands and just worshipped God. It was a...
So you would have never had that experience had you not gone with him.
Well, and I just saw God meet me at my point of absolute... There was nowhere else to go. I had to climb up 1,000 meters. Yeah. There was nowhere else to go.
Yeah. And no one can do it for you.
No, you've got to... And he just picked me up. It was like the footprints thing, you know?
Yeah.
He literally carried me up. It was remarkable. And I preached a sermon on it when I got back.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was a very powerful experience.
Stories from the mountains. It is powerful. I believe everyone should, if they have the physical ability, should go in the mountains at least once in their lifetime. It was life-changing for me. Me
too. Me too.
You realize how small you are. You know, it's like you're in an ocean. You know, if you've ever, swum in an ocean with no one or nothing around you, you feel so small, minuscule. And even in the mountains, you know you have absolutely no control of the environment. You know, you're so tiny. Yet it is so glorious, so magnificent. I mean, the views, the surrounding.
Spectacular.
You know, it's like, how can you not see God in this? There's no human being that could ever create or manage this. I mean, some of the photos don't do justice of what you feel up there. And what also surprised me is that you can only enjoy it for a moment. The weather changes. You've got to, you got to keep moving. Life, it teaches you, in life you just got to keep moving, even though it's difficult. And you learn so much about yourself, about your emotions, about your mindsets, and it just grows. You grow immensely. You overcome yourself.
Absolutely.
I mean, what you push through, it's not just physical, it's mental. And you just come out so much stronger out of that experience.
It probably was the most life-changing experience of my life. Because when Phil first flagged the idea, I said, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to do that. And that was the story of my life, Natanael. I had this like a monkey on my shoulder saying, you can't do that, you're not good enough. In everything. Everything for me was always a struggle. Always felt that I'm not good enough. In anything I set out to do, there was this, you can't voice. Do that. I think it was my dad, bless him, but it never really encouraged to sort of persevere in things. But I say that somewhere between sea level and 4,000 metres, that monkey ran out of oxygen. And I've never heard him since.
Yeah.
It gave me, I knew then that I could do, because I could do that, I could do anything. I can do anything. Yeah.
It does give you a grit, a resilience ability that you haven't had before. Because you break out of your whatever protection shell you have. You just can't stay in that anymore. No. It stretches you, which is wonderful.
It absolutely does. It's exposes you. Yeah.
It exposes you to yourself. You have to deal with yourself. You have to deal with the issues that are within. And it's healthy.
Well, we were supposed to go last February, but
COVID. Of course, we were supposed to go last April. We actually had the flights and everything.
Yeah, well, we've got return tickets to Kathmandu paid for, sitting on hold.
So, but we still treasure what we had, and obviously Phil was with us, and he often would refer at previous trips that he's had with you. He spoke fondly of you. He was very proud of your achievement. He was actually more proud of you than of himself.
I think so. Yeah, I think you might be right.
And I think, to do 5 treks in Nepal, it's very rare, Jan, and you are who you are today because of that as well. And the foundation that you had, obviously, with Christ and the belief, and as you said, these powerful encounters along the path. How are you inspiring your children and grandchildren now with that hindsight, with all the experience that you've accumulated over the years?
Well, I turned 60 last year. I'm 61 next month.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So these all 3 are very close. So it's Phil's birthday, anniversary, and then your birthday, all within 3 months.
Yeah. Not even 3 months, really, just in...
8 weeks.
Yeah, something like that. And last year, when I started relief teaching, I was turning 60, and I just started to think, I don't know if anybody's going to want to employ me at 60. And I started to feel very insecure for the first time ever. I've always just done relief teaching because it just fitted in with all the other things that I was doing with my life. And I started... It's
one day, it goes, it's
just
quick.
Arrive at 8, leave at 3.
You do whatever is prepared for you. You don't have to think too much about it.
Very easy, very easy. And I started to feel very uncertain about my employment future. And I said to one of my deputy principal friends, I said, what do I need to do to get some just slightly longer
hours,
just maybe a week here or a contract,
Yeah.
And she said, leave it with me.
Get in the pool.
Well, I didn't know. I never went in the pool.
Oh.
They just said, could you do... then COVID hit.
Yes.
And one of the pregnant teachers, they were sending her home early. Could I finish off the 4 weeks of the term on her classroom? So 4 weeks, lovely, absolutely. But then after a week, there were 3 or 4 children turning up. So the principal rang me and he said, Jan, I'm sorry.
It's not working.
I said, I completely understand. Well, during COVID, I thought, will schools ever open ever again? I really had no idea what was going to happen. But at the beginning of the next term, the principal rang me and he said, would you do a long service leave term?
Wonderful.
Oh, okay. Then at the end of that, he said, look, we need to take the Year 6 teacher up and bring him into admin. We're short-staffed in admin, and Year 6 needs a teacher just for 2 weeks. Could you do the Year 6 for 2 weeks? Sure. Well, that just went on to be the rest of the year. So that was 2 terms.
Yes.
And then that same teacher that I filled in for there on Year 6 there is now in Year 4. He's still up in admin. So could I do the first term in Year
just
4?
In case.
Yes. And now could you do second term as well?
Yeah.
So for the first time in my life, I now have a full-time teaching position. I've never had my own class.
Yeah.
And so the learning curve has been immense.
Yes.
And again,
Yeah.
I've got a picture of myself at 5,500 metres in my classroom.
Beautiful.
Because when I feel like this is too much.
You just look up.
I just think, I can do it.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Teachers work so hard.
And the amount of work is
The amount of work is immense.
I know. I have a huge respect for teachers.
Absolutely immense, and which is why I have run from it, because I've never really wanted to have to work that hard. I'm working harder now at 60 than I've ever worked. It's a 10-12
hour day.
Oh, I get to school at 7:30 and I leave at 5:30.
Yeah, and you take some home.
I try not to take it home, but I'm there on the weekends.
Yeah.
I've been there this afternoon. I was at school for 4 hours this afternoon.
It's public holiday today.
Well, it's just school holidays. Yeah. But I'll be there most afternoons this week. Yeah, it's teachers work so hard.
Mm. How has everything, all of this, helped you with your own children and now with your grandkids?
I'm having to pay the price a little bit because I don't see little Grace as much as I would like to.
She's almost 2, isn't she?
She's nearly 2.
Yeah.
But I think my kids seeing me just not putting the plough down, because I've turned 60, I think that's inspirational. I'm continuing to take on more challenges now than I've ever taken in my life, and I don't know what they think about that, but I hope that it's an inspiration that you just keep going.
And your children, they're all saved, obviously.
Yeah, my kids
they're following the Lord, active in their faith.
Absolutely. They all go to completely different churches.
Yeah.
My oldest son is at a high Anglican church.
Okay.
My youngest son is at a Pentecostal charismatic church.
And Amanda?
And my daughter Amanda is at a evangelical church.
And it all works out well.
They all love
and you
God.
Are you both going to the same church at the moment?
Phil and I?
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
we are.
Wonderful. As we wrap this up, Jan, I mean, I love. We could sit here and chat for hours.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much to chat about. But I'm curious as to the legacy that you want to leave. As you know, what do you want to be known by? Both in the family, in the community, so many people know you. You've influenced a lot of people here, especially obviously your family first, but not only your family, the extended church family, and everybody else that has known you. But what's something on your heart between now and then that you really want to build? You want to leave something to the generations that follow. The end is not near. I don't think the world finishes with COVID. I think there's going to be a lot of COVIDs from now on.
Yeah, I agree. My daily prayer is that I would carry the presence of God with me.
Carry the presence of God.
I want to carry the presence of God. I want to have the anointing of God on me.
Yeah.
Whether I'm at the supermarket, whether I'm in front of the kids at school, whether I'm talking to staff members at school. I want to carry the presence of God. Yeah. And that's what my principal said to me at the end of last year. He said, Jan, your humanity shines out of you like a beacon.
And it's not a Christian school.
No.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, you don't know what you've just said, and you don't know what it is that you're saying.
I say to people, to be Christian is to be fully human. Yeah. And they don't get it.
No. Well, this guy, I can only hope and pray that it's the presence of God that he sees, and he doesn't know that's what it is. Yeah. But there's something that he sees that he values, and that is my daily prayer, that I walk in the anointing of God and I carry his presence.
Amen for that.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
That's the most. If I have that, you can do it. If you have that,
that's
you can do anything.
That's a beautiful mantra to live by.
Yeah. If you have that, you can do anything.
Yeah. You transform every place.
Absolutely.
You walk into.
Everywhere you go is transformed.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah, and that's what I want. My kids are I call my kids my life's work.
Yeah.
So as far as leaving something behind, they're my life's work. And I would sacrifice my career again 1,000,000 times over to raise my kids the best that I can.
Wonderful.
Amazing people.
Well, for me it's a joy to have known you, Phil, for so many years, and also to have ministered closely back at Churchlands and also up at Kapet Canaan. It's beautiful. I love the journey, and I'm actually excited to see the future, both for you and Phil and your children and grandchildren, because it is, I see, across the generations how God works, and it's beautiful to see that.
Thank you for having me.
So thank you everyone for joining us, carrying the presence of God. What an amazing testimony, what a beautiful legacy Jan wants to leave us. Well, I hope you take that on as well, and you become aware that you carry the presence of God. You host the Godhead, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit with you, in you all the time, and you are carrying them everywhere. So you can carry that presence and transform every place that you walk into, every conversation, every encounter that you have with anybody. What a powerful testimony. Well, I really pray that this blesses you, and if it does, do share it with other people. There are a lot of people out there, especially your friends, family, extended family, who would benefit from hearing these stories. So do distribute, share them around, spread the good word. give us some feedback, write some comments, and also give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, just so we can get rated a bit higher, so we can promote this ministry. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you next time at Kingdom Stories from Down Under.
Thank you for joining us on Kingdom Stories from Down Under. We'd love it if you would subscribe, rate, and share these stories with your wider community. And remember, every story is worth sharing, including yours.